These are my ups and downs for Wolfpack Season 1, Episode 104, Fear and Pain. The credited writer on this episode is Carlos Folia, the director is Christian Taylor, and director of photography is Rich Paisley. Spoilers ahead, and as always, thanks to Trek Culture for the format. Let's start with an up. Kristen Ramsey gives an update on the wildfire. While the ongoing disaster is less of a direct driver of the action in episodes 3 and 4, the first up here is for keeping the fire as a constant presence, both on our screens and in the minds of all the characters. Another immediate up here for Rio Mangini. I can feel Austin right through the screen, and he is not well. A huge up for revisiting the traffic jam of death from Austin's perspective. Although this scene of the bus driver's demise, I think, was actually longer and clearer in the tease for this episode. Another up in this scene for not forgetting about Connor. We haven't seen him in a while and learned that officially he is missing, but for some reason Austin is convinced he's definitely dead. Kristen Ramsey gets an up for actually listening to what Austin said and then going to the scene of Connor's disappearance. I genuinely love that she is trying to get into his head here and letting the crime scene speak to her. I do have a down for this version of the Ram, but it's canceled out by an up for its autopsy table appearance later, so we just won't talk about how poorly realized Shadow Ram is in this scene. And up for Kristen's Wall of Werewolves. We've known about this since the original teaser, but that doesn't diminish how cool it is that so many people have witnessed this werewolf up close.
Couldn't find anything.
Rodrigo will never not get an up. He's perfect as a father who wants to love his children, but is faced with unique challenges.
I don't hate my son.
We get a contrasting scene with the terrifying Kendra Lang.
He screamed for 4 months. Not crying, screaming.
Now, these two juxtapose just how petty she is and how loving Ranger Briggs is. I mean, they're both dealing with special needs kids, but the difference is so striking. So they both get ups for the performance and characterizations, even though one of them is the very definition of narcissistic evil. Okay, let's get the weekly up for pack chemistry out of the way. We'll dive into the new levels of power sharing in canon observation. But here, I want to mention how much I love Blake this week.
You have to remember when I found the two of you, you were both cubs, wolf cubs. That's how I found them.
So how'd they get like that?
First, she's the GOAT in voicing the audience's curiosity over the twins' backstory.
How many payments did you miss?
Too many.
Also, a long overdue up for the Navarro family dynamic. Everyone else in this show seems to be living that upper middle to upper class lifestyle, so this family is definitely the most relatable to me. Divorced dad let the insurance lapse to pay other bills right before the house gets destroyed by a forest fire. Irresponsible of him? Yes. Absolutely understandable and believable? Also yes. Blake's lack of resources and need to work while also taking care of her brother drives the best scene of the show and provides my up above all ups this week as the big werewolf invades a parking deck. I'm not going to spoil this whole scene. Go back and watch it again because it's just as tense, terrifying, and delightful on second and third viewing. And again, we'll get more on the pack's shared experiences in canon observation. Speaking of the pack, I'm going to throw in a down here that might seem controversial.
Our real father.
I'm sorry.
I am tired of hearing, my real father is coming to pick me up. That orphan thing from Harlan. I get it. It's a real thing that happens to rootless kids. But for some reason, it just annoys me that they keep throwing it out there and that it's coming from him, who is this ultimate disaffected teenager. I'll soften that down for Harlan with an up for Luna's reaction to the same thing.
That's not my father.
Then what is it?
It's a killer.
Just as confident as her brother, she knows she didn't come from a monster. Or does she just really want to believe that she doesn't come from a monster? That brings me to my big up this week for Luna's overall journey. Her recovered memory of the horse that her dad bought her and how it met its end are both soul-crushing and satisfying in equal measure. Plus, bloody-faced children will always get an up from me. While Luna looks inward, Harlan is prowling that abandoned firehouse club place from episode 1 where he hooks up with Cyrus. Now this could have been a down. It's not really an up or a down for me. I just wish they would have given us a little more depth into Harlan's thought process. But then again, maybe that's why he's here, to avoid thinking. I think we can all relate to that. Again, we have a juxtaposition between Harlan's hookup and the Luna and Austin thing. She wears her crush on her sleeve and in her sketchbook. The mixture of sweet and absolute horror in these interactions is just perfect. Big up.
This might be a good time to tell them. Especially since I've got my own box of silver bullets.
I'll tell them when they're less pissed off. You're still the backup plan if something happens to me.
A well-timed up for bringing Prisha into the Kids Are Werewolves super secret club. I'm glad we have more adult-shaped people protecting our pack. And finally, a big up for dragging cardboard bad cop's body up several levels of scaffolding and unceremoniously dumping him. Okay, raise your hand if you were looking for Connor in that pile of bodies. Now over to canon observations. For all his do-it-yourself ammunition engineering, Garrett Briggs doesn't actually know if silver has any effect on werewolves. But he's confident enough to give Prisha her own set of silver bullets in hopes that it does. Our mysterious caller isn't in this episode, but that plot thread continues, with Ranger Briggs suggesting that it is the arsonist making the calls and that he is aware of werewolves too. We get more discussion and mind-blowing examples of the pack's shared experiences. Apparently, it's not just special abilities they can share. They also get the downside of this mind meld with one of Everett's more severe anxiety attacks. Of course, the major new power that arose in this episode is Blake's scream that not only could be heard by the others as a howl, but also prompted this full-blown 3D immersive VR waking dream experience for Everett. It also resulted in him and the twins super speeding all the way across Los Angeles to help her out. Another key aspect to that particular skill is that they have limited memories of what's happening when they're running at super speed. That, I think, is going to be something to watch. And we get the first sign of werewolf fangs in our pack that's not related to a hallucination. And it completely freaks out both Harlan and Luna. So it is apparent that this is not something that happens often. Now, we learned from the horse story that it had happened to Luna when she was a kid, but it's rare enough for them to be completely surprising. On the arson investigation, Kristen is looking for another origin point in hopes of finding a second incendiary device, and we learn that Cyrus has a cool fire department logo, Zippo lighter, and a firefighter father who died in a fire. Episode 4 marks the halfway point of this first series. Wolfpack streams new episodes every Thursday on Paramount Plus.